The sitting is resumed. Honourable for St. George North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I sat yesterday and listened to the presentation on the financial statements and budgetary proposals, it reaffirmed in my mind very clearly for me the reason why I am here, being able to contribute in this honorary chamber. Perhaps there could have been skepticism by many if the proposals as presented to us as a country yesterday came not 1 year after a government got a renewed mandate, but rather came 1 year before or a few months before a government found itself in a position where it had to go to the polls again. But this government through the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance laid before the country for its analysis a number of proposals which are encouraging. The proposals encourage us as regards the confidence that there is in the financial position of Barbados. And they also reflect what in many terms can be considered a pro-growth, a pro-labor approach that is being outlined for this country. Mr. Speaker, I had to recall during the presentation, the very long presentation, I had to recall when I made the decision to come into elected politics 2.5 years ago. It was not an easy one for a number of personal reasons. And I remember the criticisms and the preoccupation with the criticism that I could face on making such a decision. And I reflect on that now, Mr. Speaker, only because as I decided eventually to choose the harder road, that being aligning myself with the party and government, positioning myself on the inside, not only to influence decisions, but to bear whatever criticism would come to the party. I chose that, Mr. Speaker, and yesterday reaffirmed in my mind and in my conscience that I made the right decision as a member, as a person who is committed to representing people and working class people in particular in this country. I'm proud of that decision, but even as I expressed my support for the measures which were presented, the measures which seek to position Barbados as being world class, even at a time when the global crisis, supply shocks, and elevated inflation is forcing so many countries around the world to operate in an environment of uncertainty, where labor conditions, social justice are being compromised, and where the average man, the average woman may be contemplating for himself and herself how they're going to improve their lot to benefit their families. Mr. Speaker, as I reflect on these measures that were represented before this Honourable House, I had to consider that Barbados indeed must be a special place. I thank you, I should have said at the onset, for granting me leave at this time to be here in Geneva to carry out the work of labor at the international level, and for facilitating this response from me here this afternoon as well. Even during the past few days, as I sit as a member of the governing body of the International Labour Organization, the discussions that we have been having are a strong reminder that strong leadership representing workers and a government with a determined political will is what is perhaps the best combination for ensuring that working people can achieve benefit and prevent their rights from being eroded. But even as they express confidence, Mr. Speaker, without fear of contradiction, and while I acknowledge that this government is not a perfect one, because indeed we don't live in a perfect world, I commend the government of Barbados for its insistence on listening to people, from Paris Speaks to rubbing shoulders to reinvigorating the social partnership, which especially in the 5 years preceding 2018 was not allowed to function. The government continues to demonstrate that it is reaching out, it is responding, it is listening, even at times when it has to get stopped in its tracks and the public outcries force it to contemplate further or retract decisions. But Mr. Speaker, even with this acknowledgement and against the backdrop of my view that the budget is a good one, a number of things would cause me concern and would cause me pause. First of all, the recognition that sometimes as people, we don't appreciate that what is being delivered is good enough if it seems to be coming too easy. Sometimes as people, we don't appreciate all that is being presented to help us if we forget or if we're allowed to forget where we came from. When things sometimes are made to look too easy as well, Mr. Speaker, much is taken for granted and the will to fight appears not to be high on the agenda. It's like, let somebody else deal with it. Let somebody else figure it out. Mr. Speaker, I open my contribution in this way because I painfully remember what it felt like as a union leader, a labor representative back in 2013, when the labor movement in Barbados was hailed and being recognized for giving a government a second term, being responsible for a government being able to get a second term because of its cooperation in the period leading up to a general election. At a time when unions could not get increases, at a time when allowances and benefits were being frozen, where the role of the social partnership was being diminished to almost no role, where we would be entering a period as labor leaders of open disregard, being regarded as reckless, at times even as rapists, was the comparison, and a period where massive job loss was being hailed as winning the victory for a government and not a victory for the people on whose behalf we serve. Mr. Speaker, in reflecting on that, I am glad and I'm proud this afternoon that I wear two hats. And that in wearing those proverbial two hats, I have been able to participate as a leader in the largest recognized union in Barbados that successfully steered the introduction of the minimum wage. Yes, the Barbados Workers Union can be hailed directly as influencing that because it was upon the backs and upon the determination and commitment and collective support and action of workers within the G4S. That not only workers in security, but workers all across this nation could see the minimum floor of their wages being enhanced. I'm glad that in wearing two hats, it has allowed my organization, the largest representative of workers in Barbados, to use the dispute in C.O. Williams, very similar to that of G4S that is being used to level the playing field, to see us come to a moment where legislation that is over 70 years old, almost 70 years old, has been brushed off. And I speak of the labor contracts legislation, to ensure now that in construction we have established rates so that any company in construction seeking to gain bids for government contracts where worker taxes are involved, that company those organizations have to establish a minimum floor, not only in terms of wages, but in terms of conditions. And it does not stop there, because while we started with construction, the plan is to roll that out over all areas, across all areas, whether it is cleaning, whether it's gardening, all areas where public contracts are being sought. I am proud to be wearing those hats, where these contracts and these organizations that are bidding are now under an infrared light. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I said an infrared light. This is the reason I'm here. I am glad that wearing two hats, the workers of the Transport Board, a state, members of a state-owned enterprise that could not benefit from gratuities, were able to get gratuities and pensions in line with those other employees of state-owned enterprises. I am glad that in wearing those two hats, that we've heard yesterday that postal workers who have not seen an increase to the loan limit for motorcycles have seen that loan limit being expanded by almost 5 times the amount to facilitate their purchase of electric vehicles. Mr. Speaker, I can go on, but I say something, maybe. Let me turn my attention to the issue of people underappreciating what is done when it appears to come too easily. I have sat around perhaps hundreds of negotiating tables, and my experience has shown me how to read a room and how to read where another party that you're sitting opposite to is coming from, and how to recognize when a situation is bleak, and how to counterbalance against the demands of workers who are asking for more, and how to come away with the best solutions. I am happy that in the recently concluded public sector negotiations, that workers broadly and generally in the public sector yielded to the support and advice from their labor leaders to accept what could be regarded as modest and reasonable conclusions to the salaries and wages negotiations. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, I am submitting to this House that that particular outcome was an outcome that influenced directly the Minister of Finance's capacity to outline the measures that were outlined in the presentation yesterday afternoon. What we are seeing here is that we were able to achieve salaries that were guided by the bigger national picture and that took account of responsible negotiations. That is what true leadership requires. And it gave people, workers in the public sector on the IMF program, the opportunity to get an increase, not an imagined one, and also lump sum payments that saw greater benefit for those at the lower scales under the personal emoluments arrangements. As a leader who understands the reality of functioning in a post-pandemic world filled with much uncertainty, this is nothing. I recognize that this is nothing for us to scoff at. The reason why I'm here. Mr. Speaker, I am glad that there were no new reform measures that were announced that could lead to the displacement of workers. However, as it relates to the reforms which were previously announced, many of which are in a very early stage where they have actually begun to present to the workers and their representatives. I welcome the fact that this government was not presumptuous enough to outline in any great detail any approaches or any mechanisms that they may be contemplating for addressing these reforms. Why? Because, as I said, the conversations have not yet begun. And as the leader of the largest union in Barbados, I recognize the importance of not talking things and negotiating out in the public domain, but negotiating at the table. So yes, We recognize that the specificities of SOE reform were not mentioned in any detail. But because I value treating to specificities at the table and not in the public domain, that is why the broad mention was supported. So for instance, well, it would be the intention, of course, to give critical support to the areas outlined for enfranchisement. We will not get into any debate on it now, but of course, any approach that we take at the table would be one that recognizes the hard work of individuals who have always given their hard work within the courts, and that we would make sure that whatever outcomes take account of the years of hard work and recognizes in very real and tangible terms the reward that will become commensurate with effort. Mr. Speaker, it's for this reason as well that during the public sector negotiations, the union that I lead was the only one not engaging in discussions within the public domain. But Mr. Speaker, the outcome of the steadfast, insistent, focused negotiations that yielded the result that so many public servants are satisfied with is a direct result and bears reflection of the positions which the BWU put on the table during those discussions. And I say that not in a way to pat ourselves in the back, but we realize that operating steadfastly, quietly, not causing alarm bells, not looking for attention, is often the best approach to achieve the best results, the best outcomes for workers, for people generally. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I am here among you in this chamber. So we welcome the $50 million for public servants. And we are supporting these measures, context within the fact that our responsible behavior led to the kind of pro-growth measures that could have been outlined this afternoon, and that I'm sure other honorable members are developing as they make their own contributions regarding their ministries. And we expect that workers will get more, because where there is growth, there has to be some element to make sure that, as this government is always using now as its mantra, we find a way not only to share the burden, but to share the bounty where it exists. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that mission transformation for the public sector must mean that they too will benefit from their fair share when growth comes. But going back to the matter of not throwing workers on the bus, the government's objective of sharing the burden and sharing the bounty, I now turn our attention to the tourism sector. Mr. Speaker, is no denying that this sector has been largely responsible for the resurgence, particularly of our economy after COVID. It is for that reason, Mr. Speaker, that the Honourable Minister of Finance in her presentation yesterday afternoon recognized the sector as contributing greatly and signaled the expectation that based on projections, the sector will continue to contribute significantly to the growth of our economy throughout 2023. Mr. Speaker, while we may be using economic benchmarks, therefore, to say that that sector has taken us back to pre-COVID-19 times, I hasten to add that that is just a quantitative and economic measure, because in real terms, workers across the tourism sector, particularly in the hotels, have been seeing a repealing of the conditions of work that they enjoy, being put into contracts, 3 and 6 month contracts, probation periods being expanded up to 6 months, workers not being afforded their staunch day, fewer rights and fewer job securities. If you barely object to anything in a hotel, in some establishments nowadays, you don't know that when your contract ends, it is not being renewed. Conditions are being made to put people further back. At a time in 2023 when we are talking about growing, We cannot expect that growth will be allowed to take place on the backs of poor working people. And the same way that we are laying out those conditions to prescribe how those bidding for contracts must function, we want to lay out prescription that the sector that is earning off of the blood, sweat, and tears of workers in the tourism industry, in the hotel industry, that it gives back. And where it refuses to give back, that we also examine the granting of concessions. So yes, we are ready for discussions in the colloquium. That's the academic term I heard yesterday. But we are ready to have heart-to-heart discussions. And by signaling the areas that I have identified just as a start, those offenders within the hotel sector that I look forward to meeting soon would know where my heart is coming from as I enter the room on behalf of workers. Workers' rights must not be at the expense of any attempts at growth in this country. It undermines the whole objective of enfranchisement. And those rights include the right to organize and to bargain collectively. So those who dropped out of the hotel agreement and those who refuse to come in, we have to find ways, Mr. Speaker, in this country, supported by a government that is for growth and for people, to make sure that these wrongs are made right. Mr. Speaker, we will participate in those talks, and we look forward to mission transformation, seeing greed being transferred into good. And where I talk about good, the common good, that is the good for all. While I'm not promoting workers using the tool of last resort in defense of their rights and interests, I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to hail and commend the workers of UCAL, the workers of Duty Free Caribbean, and the workers of the Transport Board, who earlier this year demonstrated that wherever negotiations or talks reach a stalemate, workers can, and workers eventually will have to use that tool of last resort to promote their rights. I hope sincerely that we won't have to demonstrate it in too many areas. But by the same token, I encourage workers that where we are working for growth in the economy, to make sure that that growth is commensurate with improvements in your lot, improvements in your well-being, you must be willing not to renege on the fight. You must recognize that the fight is not over until it is over. I turn my attention, Mr. Speaker, to the issue of the 24 economy, as I eagerly look forward to participating meaningfully in any discussion aimed at stimulating growth and stimulating activity. I recognize that there are entertainers that the Barbados Workers Union has been talking to as well, that can impact and be influenced by and can have their lot improved by the measures that could present itself, the opportunities that can present itself in a 24-hour economy. And since I joined the union movement about 19 years ago, this will probably represent about the fifth such discussion that my organization will be participating in towards a 24-hour economy, and we look forward to it. But as we enter those discussions, we will still hold fast to the demand for nighttime public transport, care facilities to reflect the changed direction in economic activity, the assignment of schedules of work to facilitate work-life balance for people. In other words, people in part must also know when they're going to work in any work week that they have at least one day designated, that they know it is theirs to do what they have to do in other aspects of their life. Mr. Speaker, so we look forward to those discussions, and we look forward to the rollout of a 24-hour economy that not only achieves the objective of growth, but does so in a way that guarantees the health and safety of all workers participating in the economy. To the workers and their families in St. George North, I now turn my attention to you as I also welcome many of the measures, not only those outlined that I mentioned before, but many of the other measures that have been identified to benefit working people and their families in Barbados. From the opportunities for training, which I urge you to take advantage of. When I met with the ASH workers a few weeks ago, I was so heartened by their enthusiasm. And I recognize that those workers in St. George North could become an example to so many others who have seized the opportunity, every one of them, to be retrained and repositioned to take advantage of job opportunities that could arise in a number of areas of capital work that we've heard being mentioned. From training to the commitment to work, for this government to work with banks to ensure that at least one savings area, one savings bank at least, even if it is one, could remove some of the ridiculous fees from savings accounts. To the response to rent-to-own units, the outcry across so many areas of Barbados, not only in St. George North, is that workers still, although there is opportunity being offered under the HOPE program, so many workers still cannot access mortgages because their base wage is so low. Not only do we want to see those wages increase, but we want to provide the opportunity that workers who cannot access mortgages would be able to access housing under a 30-year program for rent to own. To the management training program, and that is one that has to be fully fleshed out, and we look forward eagerly to discussing it. Because while we appreciate and welcome the opportunity for young talent in Barbados to see the public service as a place that they can develop and to wear the badge as a badge of honor being a public servant, we also have to make sure that those others who have spent and invested time in the public service coming through the ranks do not feel demotivated, and that they too see that as young people within the service and as middle-aged people within the service, that these opportunities are not being created to deny them potential for succession and success, but that it is only to carve out a space for others who can contribute with fresh ideas to be given the chance to have those ideas flourish within a public sector that is mission-driven. So we look forward to those discussions as yet, and for those workers who might be thinking, $6,000, what about us? We are going to discuss this fully when the moment comes for presentation to us. We welcome also on behalf of St. George North and other working families the $600,000 investment in the Strings project for primary schools across the island. So many of our children are talented, but so few of them see opportunities because their families can only afford and sometimes cannot even afford the very base in terms of education to offer them. What this Strings project does is it starts to engender and tease out the talent that there might be from those who otherwise may not be able to afford it. And finally, although there are other areas, I want to touch on the First Jobs initiative that is being extended to persons with disabilities to allow their entry into the job force. I think that this is a wonderful opportunity that must not be ignored by the general public of Barbados for the value and the difference that it will make in so many lives. Bailey Ali, I was happy to hear that yours too will soon be the opportunity to have the sewerage situation that you experience today addressed in a manner that will allow you to enjoy the conveniences that so many others of us in a modern existence can enjoy. You heard it. Provision is being made to fix that. And we hope that by the end of this financial year and by the presentation of another budget, that yours will not be a recall that this matter that was committed, this promise that was made to you was not a promise kept. I continue to thank you, the good people of St. George North, who with your vote allowed me to be able to participate not only as your MP, but nationally and internationally for workers across all levels of Barbados. Mr. Speaker, as I said at the start, this budget has most definitely reminded me of my role, my purpose for taking the hard road of being involved in elected politics, my purpose for seizing the opportunity, no matter how hard, to participate and bear whatever negatives come with it, to participate at the table of decision making. Mr. Speaker, sir, in closing, I wish to thank the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the member for St. Michael Northeast. I want to thank her, Mr. Speaker, for setting out the framework for all Barbadians across all levels of this society. Those areas that I've mentioned, and the many more, because there are both at least 3 times as many areas that I've mentioned, for laying those out to show the average citizen how he or she can participate in the growth objective, the mission transformation of this country. It envisages a role, Mr. Speaker, for all of us. And I know that we as Barbadians are up to the task. The common sense approach presented by the member of St. Michael Northeast, which is aimed at stimulating growth to cover expenses, as opposed to the tears that many of us shed as we try to tax ourselves out of a bad state, out of economic decline.
Honourable member has 1 more minute.
As we recognize, Mr. Speaker, yes, I'm wrapping up, that high taxes don't gel well with low growth, and that we recognize, Mr. Speaker, that these measures that have been put before us are set to ensure that we don't see ourselves back on a path where this country could have been recognized only in economic terms as having junk status. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, before my minute is up, I commend the measures that have put. I recognize that outlined within these measures are gaps that need to be closed constructively in those places where the issues will be properly developed and properly outlined for the betterment and improvement of citizens of this country. So as I thank you and as I wish you and all my colleagues a successful conclusion to the debates in this honorable chamber, I end by saying upward, onward, let us work to make Barbados world class for our generation, for our children, and for their generation. Mr. Speaker, I submit and I thank you for this opportunity.
Honourable member for St. Michael Northwest.
Thank you, sir. To everything, there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. Sir, I rise through the good grace of God and the good people of St. Michael Northwest, who I represent and who I am happy to say will not be able or will not have to be burdened with any more taxes during the next financial year. Sir, the existing taxes that remain the same are not taxes that this government implemented just because we can. The existing taxes that remain the same are not taxes that this government implemented because we don't care. Sir, the existing taxes that remain the same are not taxes that this government implemented because we do not have the interests of every Barbadian at heart. The existing taxes that remain the same are taxes that this government had to implement in order to make up for all of the corruption and financial mismanagement that took place under the former Democratic Labour Party at the hands of the former Minister of Finance between 2008 and 2019. We did not put Barbados in a critical state that the last Minister of Finance could not pave roads. We did not put Barbados in a critical state that the last Minister of Finance could not buy buses. We did not put Barbados in a critical state that the last Minister of Finance had to print money. We did not put Barbados in a critical state that the last Minister of Finance could not give the public servants a salary increase. Sir, we did not put Barbados in a critical state that after 5 years being in office, the good Barbados Labour Party, that the good people of this country are still paying the existing taxes that this government had to implement in order to run and manage the affairs of this country, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the $32.5 million that were allocated to the Welfare Social Services Department because I know we have a lot of families who are in need in this country. And I am sure that some of these resources will benefit the good constituents that I represent. Sir, I support the $2.6 million allocated to the Child Care Board because I know I have constituents who have children that attend the Farm Day Nursery and the Nightingale Day Nursery who will also benefit from these resources. Sir, I support the $12.5 million allocated for crime prevention because I can admit that much more needs to be done in order to help the youth in this country. And I want to boldly say, sir, that we as politicians cannot only go out there and reach out to the young people when we want a vote. I honestly would like to say that we need to do more and create more opportunities for the young people in this country. And I, as the representative for the constituency of St. Michael Northwest, I can assure you that I will continue to fight for the youth and the betterment for the people in my constituency. Sir, the community elderly care program, sir, I beg your pardon, is an excellent program, and I fully support the $9.7 million that is allocated to this program because I can honestly attest, sir, that this program presently benefits a lot of the elderly people who resides within my constituency. And to add to that, sir, I want to say openly and publicly that very shortly that I will be looking to launch the Neil Rowe Care of the Elderly and Disabled Shuttle Service for my beloved constituents. Sir, I am looking forward to see areas such as Paul Bay, Free Hill, Barker's Gap, Deacons Road, Gills Gap, Bridge Gap, Brighton Terrace, St. Stephen's Hill, benefiting from the $27.6 million allocated for the road rehabilitation program. Because I can admit, sir, that I have constituents that need better roads, need road humps, need street lights, just like any other constituency that my honourable colleagues represent. Sir, I trust that in this financial year, the Drainage Department will step up to the plate and make round things right in St. Michael Northwest. I trust that in this financial year, the Drainage Department will rectify the flooding issues that my constituents have been complaining about for more than 10 years. I trust in this financial year that the Drainage Department will use some of the resources allocated to rectify some of these major challenges that are existing in my constituency. Sir, it will be remiss of me not to express my gratitude and to say thank you to the chairman, the director, and the staff of the Urban Development Commission for allowing me for between 2018 to present to build nearly 15 houses for less fortunate families across my constituency. And by extension, sir, I wish to say thank you to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for providing the necessary resources to the Urban Development Commission in order for these families to benefit from better living conditions. And I am aiming, sir, to build 15 more houses within the next 5 years under the Barbados Labour Party. I have built more houses for poor people in St. Michael Northwest than the former Minister of Finance ever did in the 10 years that he was the representative. And that's a fact. I don't want to lies. Sir, I want to take this opportunity to send a firm message to some of the contractors who do work for this government. We have building contractors in this country that continue to suck the taxpayers. We have building contractors in this country that are getting contracts and misusing the taxpayers' money. They know who they are. I know who they are too. And it needs to stop. When a building contractor receives a contract and crash the job by misusing the funds or creating errors during the building construction, the taxpayers have to pay for their wrongdoings. It needs to stop. And we need to chastise some of these contractors who we as MPs would recommend to give their services to the different organizations under this government. And I want to caution one contractor in particular, RJ Layer Contract. I want to caution that contractor, but he knows who he is. And he also do work for the National Housing Corporation. But I want that this government send a firm message to these contractors and let them know that whenever they misuse the taxpayers' money and crash jobs, that the expense will be at them and not the taxpayers. Because I'm a taxpayer too. I'm a taxpayer too. Sir, the public servants of this country suffered from a salary freeze under the Democratic Labour Party. And who could not be more deserving of a second salary increase under the Barbados Labour Party government but the public servants of this country? Thanks to the Prime Minister for making it possible under an IMF program. And sir, let me face the reality. You former Minister of Finance made things hard in this country for people. Hard. And the $1,500 given to the public servants cannot compare to what he took from the taxpayers and the Treasury of Barbados. Cannot. And this government knows the high level of corruption that took place under the hands of the former Minister of Finance. And I hope, sir, that the former Minister of Finance do not carry the same corrupt practices to the World Bank. Sir, I want to send a message also to the President of the Democratic Labour Party. And I know he's doing his job as the President, but I just want him to be mindful that what this government inherit was caused by the same party that he presides over. And I want him to be mindful of that. We didn't ask to be in this position. The former Minister of Finance and the former member for St. Michael South placed us in this position. We didn't ask to be here, sir. And I want him to be mindful of that. So as much as the budget did nothing for Bajans, I want him to be mindful that we will endure and persevere. And better days are ahead under the Barbados Labour Party government and under the leadership of the Honourable leader for St. Michael Northeast. And I will answer with the words of Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for good and not disaster. Plans to give you a hope and a future. And to that, I will continue to do my utmost best when it comes to representing the good people of St. Michael Northwest. Thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Philip North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's on. It's my pleasure to be here to give my remarks and my opinions on yesterday's budget speech. Sir, have you ever had the opportunity to anticipate a good movie? Thriller, let's say a thriller. Sat down in front of the television, popcorn in hand, waiting for the part of the movie that gives away the whole story, and then a relative comes and says, oh, he's not really dead, he'll come back at the end of the show. And spoil the whole thing for you. That's how I felt yesterday, but in a good way. Before I could sit at the end of my seat, like I usually do every budget day, and at the 4th hour, you get the licks. The Prime Minister saw it fit to announce there will be no taxes. It almost felt like throwing down the popcorn, but for good reason. And I must admit, and I think members in here know that I am a critical being and thinker, I could find nothing in the budget really to fret about. And I congratulate the Cabinet and the Prime Minister for the effort that she's making to make a better Barbados for our people. So I spent the last year in this new role as Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, basically catching my feet, catching my footing, trying to understand what my role was in that ministry, still trying to understand to some extent in the ministry. I was faced at the outset, probably from the first day on the job, by what we call call-in programs, by the disgruntled opposition, but I dare say that is their job. Without the disgruntled, we cannot improve. And I encourage the Honourable Member for Christchurch East to fret not himself with respect to the gentleman he spoke about earlier. Perhaps that's his way for interviewing for a job. I suspect that's it. Maybe that's his way to get a job. So, and it could only prove to make us better in the conversation. That's what oppositions do. I want to bring out some of the best of QEH, and we have been working really hard over the last year. You would have heard the complaints with the waiting period in the accident and emergency and probably the outpatient department. We've heard the complaints with the large cataract list that was on our shoulders, breaking us down. We've heard the complaints of the exodus of the nurses and the complaints of us bringing in nurses from Ghana and Cuba, which we had no choice really because the numbers here were few. We've heard the calls from disgruntled patients, and I will be the first to admit that some of them had cause to complain, but not all of them. We have heard about the lack of joint replacements, knee and hip within the hospital, and the effect of the NCDs with respect to the hospital and overburdening the hospital, not only causing stress to patients, but it became such a burden on staff, and I think they're almost still on the verge of burning out, but the public does not understand this part. We took some time and brought down the issues within the A&E with the help of the Northwell, the organization from New York that came down basically to tell us what we knew already, but to encourage us. We recognize that the staff of the hospital, the medical and nursing staff, are among the best in the world. Even Northwell acknowledged that. So the problem did not lie in our staffing in terms of their skills. But the Honourable Prime Minister made it clear in her budget speech that we will now be moving in, thanks to the contribution of some $5.5 million to complete the phase 3, which brings to culmination the A&E department in terms of how it's fit, so that will be completed. And this lends us, sir, to decrease the congestion in the A&E and the wait times, hopefully. That will go a long way. It has opened up several beds in the A&E department, so the stay should be shorter. We've also increased the complement, as you have heard when we were in the well, of the ambulance service, and that can also aid in getting the A&E back on track. With the eye clinic, I am pleased to say last year we had a number of 470 backlog in cataract surgeries. We've completed that backlog and now are working on the existing cataracts and any that were lost to follow up. So that's a plus. We had restarted the joint replacement surgeries in November and December with a pilot, and I'm happy to say now, please don't make it, I wanted noise. I am pleased to say that it will be restarted in April with knees, and then on alternate months, we will do knees and joints and knees and hips, until the backlog hopefully is completed. Bearing in mind that we have a large list of emergency surgeries, especially within the Department of Orthopedics, that are crucial and immediate, but we're working on that. So, equipment, $130 million going towards equipment. The public well knows that oftentimes we have end-of-life equipment which require repairs oftentimes. So, example, the CT scan, we have to order a CT scan. It came to the end of life and will be reordered, so we will see a plus there in terms of patient care. And a lot is happening within the QEH. We can now boast of a transition program where patients that have been discharged for whatever reason will be followed up on the outside to decrease the number of readmissions that we are seeing. We also are extending the cardiac care program, cardiac care suite to a 24-hour suite. So patients that have their valve issues or circulation issues within the heart will be addressed at any time of day, all day. But I want to move now to the NCDs, because I have some other stuff to talk about closer to home. And the NCDs that was placed on me, and it was my pleasure to take up the mantle for that. We have been working extremely hard, both with QEH, well, Ministry of Health and Wellness, and I include the QEH there because it is a ministry. We have formed collaborations with PAHO and WHO to get the message across of the importance of the NCDs. And the NCDs reared their ugly head basically as the COVID pandemic started. So we managed to see many people. I have a patient right now that I don't know how well she's doing, that suffered the effects of the COVID pandemic for not seeking help. So she's now stage 4 cancers. We're trying to get that arrested right now in terms of other people coming in with the same issues. You have all have heard, and the rest of the public, because we're getting some lashes for that. For whatever reason, I'm not clear. The additional 10% on the sugar sweetened beverage tax. The last 10%, we have proved that has decreased the purchase of sugar sweetened beverages, stand corrected at 7%, and increased the purchase of bottled water, and the use of water on the whole. So I am not so certain what the outcry from some of the members of the public with this tax. We can only encourage you to do what is right. We have not banned you from using sugar-sweetened beverages, but we only caution you on the results when you take up a bed in the A&E or in the hospital, on the wards of the hospital. We can only caution you. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But with that, I am proud to say that we have, I don't want to say partnered, but assisted the Ministry of Education with the rolling out of the Barbados School Nutrition Policy, which not only addresses the diet within the schools, but also to increase the physical activity of these students, educating the teachers and other staff members and so on. And I am particularly proud of the Ministry of Education for spearheading that initiative. That is also causing a bit of a backlash. It really, I don't know, it's a little bit above my head. What are my children going to eat? The same money that you spend on unhealthy foods, you can spend on healthy foods. I can't really do the math. The NCD Commission is back on board. The National Task Force on Wellness has been working really, really hard to get the message across that you need to exercise, you need to eat properly. They've been doing hikes almost every weekend. They've increased the funding for non-governmental agencies like the Cancer Support Services, Diabetes Center, and the other. We are working with other NGOs like Healthy Caribbean Commission and Heart and Stroke Foundation, which has been really paramount in addressing childhood obesity, which Barbados also faces. I want to congratulate and give a heartfelt thank you to the Honourable Member for St. John to instituting the mini gyms. Forgive my name. No, I don't want to speak about that. Community gyms. Thank you. That could only add to what we're facing. The mini stadia, I want to thank you on that as well, but I will save my thank yous for a little later when I have some other things to discuss. The polyclinics, that is my area to some extent, with respect to NCDs, but I still know a little bit about it. We have been given monies now from these estimates to basically fix the infrastructure. A lot of the polyclinics are suffering from mold, are suffering from broken equipment, even staffing. So we're looking at that. The dental program, Honourable Member, that sits next to me, Christchurch East Central. He'll be happy to hear that we're paying special attention as well to the disabled or the differently abled child in terms of equipment coming into the polyclinic. The geriatric hospital, I was not a big part of it, but I can say that I'm extremely pleased. All of us in here have had constituents that basically are on a long waiting list to access the geriatric hospital. Yes, the focus is mainly now on getting the elderly fakir and the young fakir to some extent out of the hospital into the geriatric hospital, which puts it, and I keep arguing for it, and I will maintain that, which puts the ones on the outside in the community on an even longer waiting list. So the build-out of the new geriatric hospital hopefully will address some of these issues. But no, sir, yes, I want to bring it back to my home ground, stomping ground, St. Philip North constituency. There are many positives within the budget speech. There's a reason they call us St. Farlet, or that you need a visa to get into St. Philip, and I take great offense by the way, but that's not the point right now. The point is, because we are so far and many of us work in the city or outside of the parish, the cap on gasoline and diesel prices for the next 6 months is well appreciated, and I say thank you on behalf of my constituents and myself. We are also grateful for the incentives to purchase electric vehicles. I am also grateful for that whenever I get around to it, hopefully within the next 2 years. Now, I get back to the mini stadia. I don't think anybody in here is as happy as I am to hear that mini stadia, and the number you're quoting is 17, so I'm trusting that every parish would have a mini stadium. I have been working with my schools. I have 5 primary schools in my constituency. And having witnessed the knapsack and the inter-school competition lately, I was there for a couple of them. It was glaringly obvious which schools had more opportunity and which schools did not. I witnessed some of the town schools outfitted to the hilt, track shoes that for the first time I got to see up close and personal, gear, all fancy aerodynamic clothes and, sweat-proof clothes. And then there was the other set, the smaller schools, who nobody actually paid for them to do classes in track and field, clubs, nothing like that. The other schools bearing their baggy uniforms, either running barefoot or shoes that are not track. So when we say that all schools are equal, I beg to differ when it comes to opportunities with sports. So I would wish that really, really, really quickly that we get these mini stadia, because we need to encourage our children. We have schools, I have 2 that are maybe 2.5 if you want to say, that are well outfitted with the space for track. But I also have 2 that sit on about maybe a 1/4 acre or less of land. And the Honourable Member for St. Michael's Southeast will tell me again, I'm speaking about the St. Catherine School and the St. Mark's School. A member of the Ministry, an employee of the Ministry of Education told me the other day, all you talk about is St. Mark's, St. Mark's, St. Mark's, St. Mark's. And this is true, and I will be continuing to talk about St. Mark's, St. Mark's, St. Mark's, and St. Catherine's and St. Catherine's so I could see something better happening for them. St. Catherine's, as I said, we had the pleasure of having the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central come up on Monday, really, to start his Clean and Green initiative. I am eternally grateful for that. It can only add to the school, the aesthetics of the school, and also be a part of the program where children can learn how to take care of fruit trees and vegetables which they want to start growing, and to basically be proud of the school. I'm yet to figure out where in St. Mark's to put this Clean and Green. We can handle the clean, but there's no space for the green. Believe me. The row is over 200 students with we have 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings on less than a 1/4 acre. There's no space for these children to even exercise other than to walk across the road. We have had approval for a sidewalk for a little while. Approval is still not there, but I live in hope. But bearing in mind that schools like Society Primary, which the Honourable Member for St. John is well acquainted with, it had closed down. So these other 2 small schools are the nearest. So the roles have definitely increased. And some of these schools have not been given the opportunity to be involved in things like swimming. We made it clear on the platform that every child in Barbados needs to learn how to swim. The argument is that we have beaches in the country. My argument is, if any of you have visited the beaches that I grew up using, they're now eroded thanks to climate change, and I'm happy that the Prime Minister is fighting on that end. They're now eroded and rocky. Nobody can learn to swim there. The only other area is the gymnasium, and if you travel from St. Philip to the gymnasium, the day is over and you miss the classes, and it's a waste of time to learn to swim. I hope these mini-stadia will consider the inclusion of a pool, not only to benefit St. Philip North, but the rural constituencies that are begging for a little help in this area. We too have Leo Martindales in our constituencies, you know. Leo Martindales exist in St. John and St. George and St. Philip, Christchurch to some extent. Leo Martindales exist, and we need to bring them out. And I hope, and I congratulate also the Prime Minister for bringing in the National String Program. And the number of schools here has to include some of mine. I just hope that there is a follow-through with that. And by the next budget, I can tell you how our students are performing. I hope and pray for that. I'm becoming a child of the Lord all of a sudden. So that's one of the issues that we have up there. I remember, before the last election, I think before COVID, we being Ministry of Education, had announced that we have reached agreement in acquiring a 2+ acre piece of land to help facilitate the spacing of one or two of these schools, because I see an amalgamation there. It was announced publicly, but up to this day, I have not heard anything about it. I was gypsy enough, as the Belgians said, to call the person who I had engaged to donate, and he has heard nothing about it, and I want to encourage the present Minister of Education to please follow up on it for me. If I can help wherever I can, please let me do it. Michael Lashley, that last minister that represented St. Philip North before me, had promised the same. I don't do empty promises, Mr. Speaker. And I'm full of expectations. And I am hoping that before I leave that constituency, whenever that is as representative, that I will be proud to say that we have acquired that piece of land that not can only accommodate maybe an integrated schools between the two, but sporting areas, 2 acres is a lot. Sporting areas, perhaps a library. None of these schools that I mentioned earlier have libraries. I mean, everything online now, but they don't have a lab for the computers either. They don't have it, and that disturbs me to no end. But I live in hope. I really, really, really live in hope. So I was listening to the Honourable Member for St. James North with respect to equality with the disabled, and I agree with him fully. But it's not only the disabled. We have to be equal in schools in terms of safety. I hope the principal is not listening for St. Mark's. I was able to walk through the gate at lunchtime to take lunch with my own daughter, walk through the gate, walk up to the classroom, hand her the lunch, walk around the school, and walk out the gate. If I could do it, somebody else could. We need increased security in these schools, regardless of what we think that their schools more prone to violence and stuff. Barbados is too small to relegate it to a couple of schools in town. It can also extend to the country, and I would like to not wait for it to happen, for some child to get hurt, or parent when they're on the grounds. I don't want for it to wait to happen. So we need to seek equality with respect to security and opportunity. I am one, me personally, when there are things like AgriFest or a show somewhere. Let me look at the time. Or thank you. Or show somewhere that is of educational benefit. Yes, I take my daughter, but my car is also filled with her friends. Because I know, sir, that they don't have the opportunities that she does. And you know what? I've been asked so many times that it's becoming embarrassing, why don't I move my daughter and put her in a private school? One, I don't have the money that it takes, but that's beside the point. The point is that my child is no better or no worse than anybody else's child. And if she stays in a public school, she and the rest of the children deserves as much as the childless rooms out there. And she will stay there for another year if I have my way, until something better can come. And after that, I will fight for my schools as well. I refuse to move her. It was thought of as an election ploy. Well, I threw that out the window because this is year 5 now. So that is one of the issues I have with the school. Pluses, I want to give kudos to the Minister of Agriculture. He developed Brown Spawn. I remember it well because it sounds like me. Brown's Pond to help with the irrigation for the farmers in the constituency. I'm really, really proud of that. I'm also proud of the $2 million, the revolving fund to help the livestock farmers. That can only come in handy for our people. I'm all over the place, but not quite. I want to do my thank yous. I want to thank the Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast. After that ministry was in the well, and I had my concerns, by the next day, I had at least 4 calls from Water Authority personnel. I was on the road the next day taking pictures of some of my issues. They came and did what they had to do. They're investigating the low pressures in the areas I mentioned. They're investigating the meters that were in the odd places. And I thank the Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast and her team. I really, really thank you, through you, Mr. Speaker. The roads is the next another story, as Beijing said. And we all know the issues with the roads, so I don't have to bring it up again, and I won't. To almost wrap up, I want to give a few of my concerns. One is with the credit unions, banking, but the credit unions in particular. I remember the previous member for St. Michael, from St. Michael North, used to speak most passionately, angrily sometimes, but passionately on the expectations of the bank when it comes to politically affiliated people and their families. It has got worse because even now, outside of political affiliation, people are finding it extremely hard to open bank accounts. You get a new job, you want to open a bank account, but the minimum is, you haven't been paid yet, but they have set minimums. I can't remember if it's 2 or more, but if you don't work nowhere, I asked the MP for a suit of clothes to go to work the next day. Where do you find the money to open a bank account if you don't get paid? These are things that we need to look at. And I don't want to hear about central bank rules. I don't want to hear about banking issues. I want it better for that. All of these jobs that we're trying to get people into, they can open a bank account and live for themselves. I want to say here, getting back to credit unions in particular, there are many small credit unions. One is in my area. And I have joined that credit union several years ago to support as well, and they're in my home ground. They'll be celebrating 60 years of existence come June. That's the St. Mark's Credit Union. Yes, that word again, but not associated with the school. Now, they have an entirely voluntary staff. None of them are paid. But the fees expected for these small credit unions with respect to, what's the entity called? Minister of Finance, in the ministry can help me. They have to pay fees to complain, to the, what's the name? I will find it. They have to pay fees, that's it, Financial Service Commission. And the truth is, this small credit union with only voluntary staff, they find it very hard. Not only that, they have to find their own compliance officer. And in checking this morning, I realized that they spend some, if we could do the addition, 3,000 plus 4,000, 4,000 about 3 times in the last year to have to bring in an external compliance. They can't afford one internally. But I want us to have a look at that. Well, not us, the people responsible for finance and banking, to have a look at that. I really don't want to see small credit unions like that expire. The other issue they have, all of a sudden, credit unions were designed for the small man, as far as I can understand from my father, who incidentally started that credit union. For the small man to save. Back in the day, banks were not interested in black people saving anything. So the credit union movement came out, and the Honourable Member for St. George North, correct me if I'm wrong. But no, there are these forms to be filled out so that you can put down how much you intend to deposit. I have to fill out mine entirely on that. How much you intend to deposit. If you happen to go over a little more, like if you have a meeting turn, it's being flagged. So the credit union has to account for that. It's a fact, I know. The credit union has to account for that. So if I, as a small person, knowing my salary, I could put $100 a month, and all of a sudden I win the lotto and could put another 3,000. It is flagged. Credit union have to take time. This is members that have to work. All of them are working, but they do voluntary service. Things like that need to be looked into because I can't come up with a figure that I put in the credit union. Some months are good, some months are not so good. Some months the bills are high, some months the bills are not so high. So I am hoping that somebody hears me, and I know he's right beside me, so that should be fairly easy. And have a look at that area. As I said, the budget really had nothing to pick down. It was fantastic, really. I said this before, and this is the last thing I'm going to fret with. Yes. I understand the sewage and garbage tax. I can understand even more the garbage tax. But the sewage system in St. Philip, and I'm going to make a suggestion here. We are expected to pay a sewage tax, which oftentimes take up half of the bill. So people that are in arrears, and I'm happy what the Prime Minister said yesterday, that if you could pay them all, the principal, you get the 25% discount. Wonderful. But people are in arrears when they're trying to get the thing paid off. The garbage and sewage taxes always come out first. We are not connected to a sewage system in that part of the world. We built our own wells. Maybe the powers that be could ruminate on this suggestion that we have subsidies or something to assist us in digging wells. Yes, there is rural that would assist, but generally, if we are asked to pay the sewage tax, it's only fair that we see where the money is going. I know the whole theory about Peter pay for Paul and all of that, but it's important for us because we do not rely on the sewage system, but yet we still pay thousands of dollars to build wells. So this is a thought. The honourable member before me basically said everything. He did a good job. He doesn't speak often, but when he speaks, it was worthy of applause. He covered all the other areas I wanted to speak about, so I won't belabor you with another conversation. But to end here, I want to just say that I'm pleased with the budget. I have met no one so far in the last 24 hours that had a complaint with the budget. Except the usual people or person probably that interviewing for a job. Hopefully you will get the next one. It was well received, and I continue to hopefully I'll be here to witness further development of the country through this government. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise, of course, to celebrate, not to celebrate, but to support, I guess, and also to celebrate what was in the budget, sir, and presented to the people of Barbados. I think it is one of the most transformative, visionary, examples of leadership that one could possibly begin to imagine, especially in a post-COVID environment, but one of the best budgets that I have heard in a long, long, long time. And sir, I do not just say so. These are not just mere words. We were made to believe, sir, that the worst was about to come. Barbadians started panicking for no reason, sir. I will deal with that, though, at the end of my speech, because I do not feel people should be allowed to walk about the place and talk loose and scaring innocent boys and girls like they're the Grim Reaper. And sir, I will deal with that at the end, sir. But I want to begin by thanking all of my colleagues for the contributions that they have made. All very solid contributions so far. I particularly want to thank the member for St. George North. I know in her position as leader of a union, it must not be easy. And I thank her for her contribution, sir, but also for her leadership of this country, sir, and for staying the course, sir, and for recognizing that there is great work to be done, but that it requires us to work in tandem to be able to achieve this great work, sir. I also like that she focused her contribution, sir, essentially as a matter of leadership. Because to me, the difference between those of us who occupy this space and this place and those who would want to get in here, sir, is a matter of leadership. And when I was a boy in my mother's house, she used to always say this poem by Henry Longfellow, I think it is, the American poet. The heights of great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. My house, all of my brothers and sisters, all 8 of us know it. The heights of great men reached and kept, sir. That you do not achieve results overnight. And that you have to work for it, sir. You have to put in the effort. You have to be ready, sir, to stay up at night. You have to work for it. But the problem with this Labour Party, perhaps, is that we came into office, sir, and in quick time, we saved the dollar. We cleaned the sewage off the street. We sent our young people back to school. We gave public servants a pay raise, and the country still had time to go home for dinner. We did all these things, sir, in such a short space of time that perhaps people did not get to appreciate that these were difficult things to achieve. We did all this work, sir, because we were planning, sir, preparing for when we came into office, sir, to be able to offer leadership. And that this budget that came before the country, sir, is one of the truest examples of leadership that I have seen in a long, long time. Sir, you do not get results overnight, sir. And the public servants, sir, who are now getting their second pay raise in 5 years, compared to 1 pay raise in 10 years under the last administration. 2 in 5 must be better than 1 in 10, unless you're practicing Calmanomics. 2 in 5 has to be better than 1 in 10, unless you're the former member for St. Lucie, whose math and economics were clearly challenged. Sir, in this country, sir, let us be clear, because there's so many things that we did. There's so many things that we did, sir. We gave the public servants the pay raise, sir. We are now working to provide legislation for the elderly. I may not get into all these things today. We are doing work, sir, for persons with disabilities. I see in this budget, you're going to increase the amount of money that they can claim in income tax, the elderly, sir, from $40,000 to $45,000. Doing things, sir, for children, persons with disabilities, thanks to the Honourable Member for St. Peter, would also be benefiting primarily from the First Job Initiative. Sir, in this country, we are talking about training, allowing people to learn to play strings and fashion. I mean, really shaping and changing this country, sir, so that people at the end of the day could benefit, sir. And that is what this is about. You know, when I was a university lecturer, sir, I used to teach social policy, social theory. The Honourable Member for St. John don't like me to tell this story, but, you know, he's a former student. He used to call me sir.
He used to learn?
He was an outstanding student.
I was talking about...
He was an outstanding student. He used to call me sir. But when I was a lecturer at the university, sir, I used to teach social policy. You're a social scientist, but I used to teach social policies, research methods, sociology, and one other class. But sir, whenever I would say poor people, there would always be some person in my class who would be very uncomfortable with poor people. The phrase, you shouldn't call them that. You shouldn't say that's what you call them. I said, well, if I call Carl Williams rich, does that bother you? No. Busy. Rich. Bother you? No. None of the rich people don't bother. Don't bother when you say certain people are rich. But it bothers them when you say certain people are poor. There are some people, sir, who are poor. I was born, sir, in my Lord's Hill, a poor area. Raised in the Pine, a housing scheme, poor area. For the most part, sir, I represent a constituency, sir, that is a lower socioeconomic community. There is no shame in being poor. And that the shame resides, sir, where you think that there is a shame because you feel that somehow being born poor, sir, comes with all these other things. And in your own mind, thinking that people are less than you because of where they were born. That is a nonsense, sir. And that I feel that this budget, sir, has a lot of good things for poor people. A lot of good things for poor people, sir. You know, sir, this Barbados Labour Party, sir, and I want to just go through a few things, sir, today because it feels as if people have forgotten. This Barbados Labour Party, sir, when we came into office, sir, and you look at what was being done at the welfare department, sir, the amount of money that is now going to the social services is by far the most money that has ever been spent on social services, by far. The former government loves to say that Barbados is not just an economy, it is a society. They say it all the time. And they separated it only because it made people think that they were doing something for the poor. But when you analyze what was actually being done, sir, definitely not enough. And that this Labour Party stands head and shoulders above any administration of that Democratic Labour Party when it comes to treating the poor people. And sir, I want to show, when we came in, sir, we raised the welfare rate, sir, by 40%, sir. And I won't get into all of it, sir, but let me tell you what that means, sir. It meant that children under 16 moved from getting $45 to $63, sir, a week. It meant, sir, that severely disabled persons went from getting $116 to $162 a week. This is real dollars. This is money that you could buy food with, sir, feed yourself, feed your family, sir. It meant, sir, that children under 16, which will be a special case, sir, went from $45 to $63, sir. It meant that almost in every area, people got more dollars in their pockets. The poorest of the poor in this country, sir, to be able to deal with their own issues, sir. This government will be the first government, sir, when we bring, and we've already laid the Child Protection Bill, and we're about to lay the Child Justice Bill, the most progressive pieces of legislation in the entire Caribbean, sir, when it comes to looking after children. Now, we're not going to get everything right. Of course, legislation doesn't change everything, but we will have the most progressive legislation, sir, when it comes to looking after the needs of Barbadian children, sir, in terms of protection and in terms of justice. And you know what amuses me, sir? You know, a lot of this bickering by the Democratic Labour Party would be comic if it were not so tragic. Because this is the same government that held office for 10 years. And the things that they're complaining about, sir, they did nothing to change. Our legislation, sir, some of it has been on the books, sir, for a century. For a century. We're coming into office, sir, and in 5 years, oh, you haven't done this and you haven't done this. They had 10, didn't do it. When the honourable member, sir, the representative, sir, the minister responsible for home affairs, sir, brings the piece of legislation for child justice, the most transformative piece of legislation to engage children, sir, in this country that come into contact with the justice system. People complained about wandering and what the Labour Party was doing. What they did, sir? What did they do? And I know before the end of this year, sir, hopefully in the next few months, sir, we will debate and pass the Child Protection Bill and protect our children. We will debate and we will pass, sir, the Child Justice Bill and give children better access to justice in this country. These, sir, are facts. We have a man running around, sir, with platitudes. He likes to come with little statements, you know, fear nothing but fear, and teething from the Americans. There's nothing to fear but fear itself and all kind of things, sir, when there is serious work in Barbados to be done, sir. When I get up to go to work, sir, I go to work, not just to talk, sir. And there are a number of things, sir, that we will go through today, sir, that you will see that the Ministry of People Empowerment, sir, is busy at work, sir. And sir, we could go on and on about some of these things, sir, that we are being called upon to do. You know, I also know, sir, that we want to do a 24-hour economy, sir. This is going to be so important for Barbados. But I remember when I was at the port, even when the port would open late hours sometimes, sir, to encourage people to do business at night, many times a lot of the private sector people weren't ready for it. And that the people are asking the government to do a lot of changes, but that the private sector too must also lift the game. All of us, sir, in Barbados must lift our game. The government, sir, the NGOs, the private sector, sir, and the people. Because when we say it has to be a whole-of-country approach, sir, that is what a whole-of-country approach is, sir. I heard the Prime Minister, when she was speaking, sir, say that she looked forward to the day when Barbados is mentioned in the same breath as Singapore And as Japan and other countries, I seldom disagree with the Prime Minister, but I have to on this. Because Barbados, thanks to her, is already being mentioned in the same breath as Singapore and as Japan. And as a matter of fact, sir, Barbados is now seen as a beacon of hope for small island developing states in many, many ways. I just came, sir, from the CSW, sir, the Commission on the Status of Women, sir, in New York. And the amount of requests for meetings, people wanted to meet with me, not that they want to meet with me, but they don't know me. They never see me, they know me from a can of paint. I don't let that kind of thing go to my head. They don't know me, but they know her. They know the Honourable Prime Minister, sir, the Honourable Mia Motley, sir. And they want to meet with Barbados, sir, because of what the Prime Minister is doing. I mean, requests for meeting, after meeting, after meeting. And then, please tell your Prime Minister that I send my regards, sir. People are seeing what Barbados is doing, mentioning Barbados in the same context as these countries, sir, that we were just describing, Singapore and Japan. Sir, so we have a lot to be thankful for, sir. A lot to be thankful for. You know, while I was there, sir, the World Economic Forum reports started circulating. That is to look at the disparity in gender achievement, sir. And Barbados is #1 in terms of parity between males and females, sir, in the Caribbean. #1. #1. It means a lot of what countries are grappling with, struggling to achieve. Barbados, sir, has already achieved, sir. This little country, sir, is performing well. It is difficult for me to sit back and accept and to listen when people who have access to the public space, sir, access to the radio, access to the newspaper, sir, use that opportunity to spread only doom and gloom. Barbados is performing too well. And you have to give credit where credit is due. I remember when we came into office, I saw somebody had posted on social media that they were stuck in traffic. This was in 2018. They were stuck in traffic on a social media post. We were now the government. But that they were so happy to be stuck in traffic because the reason that they were stuck in traffic is because they were doing the road and that they could not remember when last a road in Barbados was done, sir. That was in 2018. And many people have forgotten, sir. We didn't do no roads for years. And now all of a sudden, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South East is to be able to do every single road in a few months. And they did not do roads for years in this country, sir. For years. And, you know, I continue, sir, to think about it, sir. But the challenge is for me is that we are now asking Barbadians, they are asking Barbadians, sir, to not follow the Barbados Labour Party, to go out and to go on the streets and to do all kinds of things, sir. I am from the Pine. Where I come from, sir, when things get tough, even if you and a man had a quarrel, sir, you don't fall out. Real soldiers know when it is time you fall in. And I am asking the country, sir, to fall in. And, you know, if you understood Barbadians, sir, there is a dignity in the way we conduct ourselves, sir. You are not going to find Barbadians setting ablaze tires and throwing it around people's necks, burning their cars and breaking in their buildings. So that is not who we are. It's never been who we are, sir. Barbadians are a patient people, sir. And as they did in 2018, sir, a Barbadian would sit down, sir, if they feel that you're doing nonsense, sir. They sit down and they're going to wait for their turn, sir. That's what Barbadians do. And if Barbadians trust their government, sir, they will quietly, sir, go along with them and let the government do what the government has to do, sir. They take a lot. Barbadians would die for a cause. But if the Democratic Labour Party think Barbadians would die for sport, they got another thing coming. And the man who wants to run, sir, or lead the country, sir, it's a joker. He wants Barbadians to die for his sport, a joker, sir. We are dealing, sir, with very serious and complex issues. You know, I had a hope, sir, because I like to see the good in people. It is who I am. Most of the time, I don't think of myself as a bee. I think of myself just as a person. But I had hoped there was enough dignity in the man, sir, and the honorable person who leads the opposition. I say honorable generously. Generously. But I had hoped that after hearing the budget, there would be at least some concession that there was some good in the budget. You know, not even that, sir. But I will deal with that at the end. Sir, for most of us, sir, who run ministries, sir, and who are part of the public service, sir, we know it is important, sir, for us to be able to offer the best service. Because we could bring all kind of things in this place, all kind of legislation, all kind of labor laws, Honourable Member for St. Peter. But if the implementation is the problem, member for the city, if the implementation is the problem, we got problems. If it is taking 2 weeks to do what should take 2 days, we got a problem. That is why training is important, sir. I have already said, sir, the welfare department is undergoing training. All of our departments will undergo training to be able to treat people better, sir. I am not interested in how much CXCs a man got when they're coming for a job as a social worker. I don't want to hear that you got an associate degree, you got a degree and 10 masters. If you don't know how to treat poor people, do not come for the job. I already told my PS, and he already communicated to the head, sir, that in this new department that is coming, sir, the amalgamated department, don't just think because you've been around that you get a spot in this place. A big part for me is going to be how have you treated to the people that you are supposed to care about. And if you haven't been treating them well, sir, don't call me, messaging me about you going 20 years. I'm saying you can send you home, sir, but you ain't dealing with poor people. And people's children, sir, because there has to be a dignity restored to the treatment of people in this country. Most of us, sir, I have not, sir, I can't claim legitimately now to be the poorest person in Barbados. I mean, people say he's a politician. A man tell me the other day that I was a politician, so my mother can't suffer. Although my mother had to go to QEH, and it took a little while, sir, as any other Barbadian. But I also know, sir, that I haven't been out of it long enough to forget that it is rough when you're trying to feed children, sir, on a day-to-day basis. When I come to the welfare department, can't feed my children, and you want me to come in smiling? Well, people have a permanent screw because life has been hard. And so what? If somebody comes to your department, they ain't dressed good enough, they ain't got on a 3-piece suit, them is smiling, so what? You have, sir, to be able to treat people good, sir. I am very happy, sir, that during the course of this presentation, sir, that we were able, sir, to announce the One Family Project. The Honourable Member for the City and myself, when he was the Junior Minister, sir, when we were working together on this particular project, sir, I know it means a lot to all of us, sir. I heard the Honourable Member for St. James South speak to it earlier. The One Family Project, sir, is so important to Barbados. And to me, sir, I feel it will make a big difference, sir, in the lives of people. So between the amalgamation, I do not have enough time, sir, to go into all these things, but between amalgamating social services, where we pull together Welfare, National Disabilities Unit, National Assistance Board, and Child Care Board, to be able to better deliver services to people, it means, sir, that if you go to welfare, or what used to be welfare, nobody knows where you're walking into that building. You just go in for social services. Could be going for counseling. You could be going asking about getting your child in a day nursery. Nobody knows. So immediately you give people back their dignity, sir. The other thing is, sir, that we're placing these things all around the country, sir, in what we call satellite offices, so that you, instead of having to go to town, there will be a family services unit in your area. You don't have to go to town. And then the One Family program, sir, which is very important to us. We are talking about the 1,000 most vulnerable families in Barbados. And we are asking Barbadians, sir, to come together and to support those 1,000 most vulnerable families in what we used to call, the Honourable Member for the City and myself, the each one, reach one. And if the Prime Minister likes to say, if you buy 2 chickens, buy a 3rd one and give somebody else. But using Barbadians to help other Barbadians, sir. We are going to be using, in the beginning, sir, 50 social workers, additional social workers, deployed, sir, to work with these families, sir, in a lot closer way than we've traditionally allowed people to work as social workers. So that you have a ratio now in the welfare department of sometimes 1 to 400 and things. None of that. The ratio of social workers to the families, sir, we're hoping would not exceed 1 to 10. 1 to 10. That's what we're hoping, sir. So that when you're working with these families, sir, you can spend time, you can look at their health needs, their education needs, all of their needs, sir, in one. And you'll deal with the family as a holistic system. The complex being, you walk in, you go to help the grandmother, but you realize that there's a child in the house who may need food, you help the child too. Mr. Speaker, sir, yesterday, the day before, sorry, sir, when we were doing the groundbreaking for the geriatric hospital, your honourable member for St. Michael Southeast and the Deputy Prime Minister may not want to hear this story because she'd been asking me about this lady all the time. But there was a lady there, sir, who wanted a boot. She's a diabetic. She needed a boot for her foot. It's been taking a long time. So I saw her yesterday, and I went to her and I asked her, I said, well, I've spoken to the people again, and they need you to bring this letter. She told me, well, I took the letter. It was a letter that was supposed to go to the NDU. I am the minister responsible for welfare, sir, NDU, and all these departments by tolerating foolishness. And she was to take this letter, sir, to the NDU, sir, but by mistake, she took it to the welfare department, she said. And when she got to welfare, this woman is an older person, sir, definitely one of our seniors, having contributed to Barbados. When she got to the National Disabilities Unit, to the welfare department with a letter that was meant for the NDU, they said, what are you doing here? What they say? You in the wrong place. You ain't read the letter. All kind of things. She said, I had never felt so bad in my life. And she had no reason to lie to me. I said, but do you have a copy of the letter? So we're going to get a copy and we're going to follow up on it. She said, I felt so ashamed the way that they treated me when I went to the welfare department, sir. So I know that we have work to do. But beyond that, sir, the bigger point that I'm making is that when we amalgamate the social services, it will make no difference where she goes with the letter because everybody got to deal with everybody, sir. That is why it is not about qualifications for me, sir. It comes down to how you treat people, sir, at the end of the day. And we have to be able to do better than we have been doing, sir, for people. Sir, I do not wish to spend any more time, sir, addressing these matters because I feel I will have a long time to do so. But I must tell you, sir, that I remain extremely disappointed in what I'm hearing coming from the other side. Sir, this, as I began by saying, sir, is about leadership. I take leadership seriously. I've been a student of it. I won the best schools in the world. And I went back at that same school to teach it. So I'm not just talking. And when I see the Prime Minister, sir, leading, sir, I say to myself, that is leadership. That is leadership in difficult times. If times are normal, you need a manager. When you don't need to be doing new things and figuring out new ways, sir, you need a manager. When times are difficult, sir, and you have to do new things and improvise, sir, you need leadership. If what Amor Mortley is doing for this country is not leadership, then I do not know what is, sir. If the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast is not leading, then I do not know what is. But the reverse is true. If the man who wants to run on the other side is doing any other thing but leadership, then I don't know what any other thing but leadership is. Sir, the antithesis of leadership, sir. But sir, here is my concern, sir. I call that kind of leadership, sir, Chicken Little leadership. The sky is falling, so now he is Chicken Little. Every single thing that happens, sir, in Barbados is a tragedy. Every single thing, sir, is need for him now to create mass hysteria and panic. There are going to be a whole slew of taxes, and no taxes came. None. Oh, sir, the public servants got a $1,500 extra. Instead of rejoicing for the people, where that money coming from? They got to pay for it somehow. You mean there can be no good news, sir, from Chicken Little? Sir, that kind of leadership, sir, is dangerous. It is a dangerous, dangerous kind of leadership, sir. And if you aspire to lead, sir, it is something that has to change. I, sir, would like to believe, sir, that all of us are responsible in one way or the other for people's, not their soul salvation, but their salvation, one way or the other. To make life better for people, sir. But you cannot be self-serving and then talking about other people's salvation when everything you do is about you. Platitudes. Not seeking, sir, to help people where they need help the most, sir. I have learned, sir, in my short time in public life to let some balls pass outside of your stump. You can't play every ball. In fact, I think it was Churchill who said that you will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks at you. Gotta let some balls pass, sir. But when people engage, sir, in salacious lies, sir, to be able to get what they believe is some salubrious life at the end of the day, to become a leader in this country, sir, by lying to the public. The Honourable former Prime Minister, sir, that used to represent the great constituency of St. Peter, used to say you cannot take the low road to high office. You cannot take the low road to high office, sir. And it seems that the person who leads the Democratic Labour Party is hell-bent on taking the low road, but not to high office, not in this country. Barbadians are not foolish, sir. And I listen, sir, the Honourable Member for the Honourable Minister of Home Affairs, sir, who represents Christchurch East. This morning when he spoke, sir, I listened in great detail because it is alarming to me that there can be a page in the paper talking about that there was nothing that was done for Bajans. I found that so amusing, sir. Well, I must be, we's all foreigners in here. All the Barbadians that I know, sir, must be foreigners. So some people are so wedded to the idea of things foreign that they do not understand, sir, when things are being done in this country. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So people, sir, are so wedded to that idea of things foreign that they do not understand.
When you say ready, do you mean married to that idea, sir? I was just wondering if that's what you meant. Married. I see it as parallel, so I was wondering if you mean say ready, if you mean married.
To the idea.
Continue on, remember.
Things foreign that they cannot appreciate when things are being done for local people, sir, in this country. Because, sir, if you look at what was said yesterday, sir, I find it very difficult to appreciate it. That is the truth. We have done so much, sir, in that budget, sir, to help poor people, to help ordinary people, to help Barbadians, sir. First and foremost, no new taxes. When all that was being said was this whole barrage of taxes that coming down on poor people, sir. No new taxes. And I saw the article in the paper, sir, you know, when I was young, again, I used to watch when there was something happening in my community. Let me say there's a fire. People run into the fire. If there's a fight, people run into the fight. Sir, but you put on a training program or educational program, people ain't really running to go to it. You talking sense at the corner, nobody ain't running to talk to it. I see people gathered around him today, sir, and it occurred to me, sir, as it did as a boy, that people gather around ignorant things. Ignorant things, ignorant ideas, ignorant thoughts, sir. All my life, people like to gather around ignorant things. And it is clear, sir, that because of the ignorance that was being spewed this morning, sir, and yesterday, sir, that people were gathering over it. And if you think about it, sir, tell me what is not here for locals. When you're going to reduce the principal to the Water Authority and QEH by 25%, if people try and pay a little something, who's that for? Is that not for Barbadians, sir? If you, sir, are working with the banks to make sure, sir, that the little savings that people now put down on the bank, sir, don't have to attract these massive fees, sir, who is that for? If not for Barbadians, sir? I am so concerned. Sir, you ask the Minister of Housing now, sir. The Minister of Housing is already committed to doing 10% of houses for persons with disabilities, sir. But they now have to do houses, sir, for persons who cannot afford a mortgage. Oh, you heard that yesterday? Oh, who's that for? If not for Barbadians, sir? Sir, you see, sir, that there's going to be a $2 million revolving fund in the Barbados Agricultural Society, sir, to help small farmers. I'm a member for St. Philip West. Your small farmers are from Mars or St. Philip South, sir. Your small farmers from Mars? It's Barbadians, sir. And you go through the budget over and over and over, sir. Nurses now, sir, getting on the travel schedule. All these things for ordinary people, sir. So I ask myself, what would we have to come to this parliament and say? What would we have to come to this parliament and say for certain people who aspire to leadership to say it made sense? I have not, like the Honourable Member for St. Philip North, I have not heard a Barbadian complain yet. Everybody know that they can't get what they want. That's life, sir. Barbadians know, sir, that they cannot get every single thing that they want. That is how we've been raised. Most of us know, sir, that you have to put in effort, sir, to get what you want. When my daughter was a child, I'd tell her, I will give you this now, she's asking for something, but if you wait, I promise to give you something 2 or 3 times more. Because delayed gratification makes sense. You ain't gonna get everything now. The height of great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, sir. But they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night, sir. We know that we have to work for the things that we want. Barbadians know it very well, sir. And that is why I am thankful, sir. I look across this parliament, sir, at the floor. And you can name any honourable member on this floor, sir, working hard in their ministry, working hard in their constituency to be able to deliver goods and services to the people who need them the most, sir. Working hard to ensure, sir, in my case, sir, that we give a better deal to people who have HIV and AIDS, even now. Hard. You saw the improved look on the HIV Commission, sir, over the course of the football, sir. We ran ads, we've been counseling people, doing more testing, sir. You look in the ministry, sir, in the program we have for strengthening for 250 families. That took 250 families, sir, out of poverty, sir, and the ones that haven't completely made it back into the 1,000 families to be able to help them. And when we've done serving these thousand families, sir, we will then serve another 1,000 and another 1,000, sir. And all of this driven by data and analysis, sir, in a way that made sense. Sir, I close by saying to you, sir, that I am so proud of this budget. I mean, I am not a man lacking faith, but when I saw the amount of things that were being said on the other side, I even began to question my own self. To say, I wonder now what's ain't gonna happen now. But sir, nothing ain't happen. And you mean you can't back from that idea? You mean you can't tell yourself that in 2018 they ain't had a Democratic Labour Party person that could tell the other one come back, and that you're manifesting that same behavior now in 2023? But somebody tell the man to come back. Because at the end of the day, sir, this Barbados does not belong to me or to you or to anybody in this country. It belongs to all of us, sir. And we will not sit back idly when certain people use the position that they were given, sir. Surprisingly, really. Because I don't know how you could left a party today, join a party tomorrow, and claim to want to lead them. But some people using the position, sir, that they were given, sir, instead of spreading the hope that the country needs at a time when the country needs hope, using that opportunity, sir, to spread fear. It is a dangerous, dangerous thing, sir. We, sir, must stay focused on our work. We get up on mornings. We focus on our work. We go to our constituency, sir. In my case, in St. Michael's South, sir, I focus on my work, sir. I am happy to see that certain things are being done, but like everybody else, sir, I would like to see more roads. I would like to see my drains fixed. I would like to see my schools painted. I would like to see everybody in my department, in my ministry, in my community getting access to welfare. I would like to see everything happen. But that's not the way that it works, sir. We will take our time, sir, steadfastly and patiently, sir. And I know, sir, that that is the man who will win the race, sir. So with those few words, sir, I wish to support the budget. I wish to support my colleagues who've spoken and those who are about to speak. I want to thank the Honourable Member for Christchurch East West Central For the Clean and Green projects, I know I have a beautiful constituency and the one more that he promised me, hopefully soon, sir. And the people of St. Michael's South, sir, are looking forward to it. But I really want to thank my colleagues, sir, because this Labour Party is a team, sir. We are a close bunch of people. I watched, sir, when they come at us one by one, sir, hoping that we will fall apart, sir. I closed by reminding the country that there was a minister who told his people that they could not go to a meeting with another minister, in the former government. When the memo was saying my staff cannot attend any meetings with that other minister, that would never happen here, sir. Because we know that teamwork makes the dream work, sir. So at the end of the day, sir, I wish to support this budget, sir. I thank my colleagues. I thank my team members, sir. I look forward to having my mini stadia in St. Michael's South and across the other areas, sir. And I wish to support this budget with all of my soul. Thank you, sir.
Honourable member for Christchurch South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. If you notice my mode of dress, I borrow a few minutes from you, sir, to note the passing of a member of this party just yesterday. I believe you know him personally, sir. And I do not think this place is too lofty to make mention of Anthony Griffith, a member of this party for many years. He is a bank hall man and therefore an empire man. I know, sir, you are a Spartan man. I join you as a Spartan man. But I want to note the passing of Anthony Griffith, a stalwart of this party. He forged a very close relationship with Sir Harold Bernard St. John while he was in Barbados. Just about 2 or 3 years ago, this party gave him an award at the National Conference in Queen's Park, and his sister accepted that award on his behalf. I've known Anthony for 45 years, as long as I've known you, Your Honor. And I'm grateful for the time that you've extended to me to say how sorry I am to his sister and his family, his children, Atiba and Akinola, and to wish him the best in the hereafter, and to hope that his journey shall be assured. I'm obliged to you, sir. When you issued your summons to me a few minutes ago to speak, you did not call my name. That is an indication to me that names are of no significance in here. You referred to me, Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Member for Christchurch South. You referred to me in my representative capacity, and that is what is important in here. You call me honourable. And when you say that a man is honourable, or when you call on a man and describe him as a man of honour, you expect that his speech shall be truthful, and you expect that his parliamentary life will be characterized by probity. Whenever I come to this place, Your Honor, I come intending to speak truth, since truth is allied to honor, and truth is also allied to all the forms of justice, political, social, and economic. And you call me member, and I come to you as the member representing Christchurch South. Whenever I come to this place and I speak, it is my duty to be the voice of that collective of citizens called Christchurch South. And their interests must be reflected in here. Their collective interests must be reflected in this place. Over the last few years, I have felt so proud of the work that we have done across that constituency. And you will note my language. I said we, and not I, we. I have had an excellent team with me in Christchurch South. It has not been a journey in loneliness. And if you hear me brag about the work that we have done, Your Honor, please forgive my immodesty, but I'm very proud of the team that has been with me in Christchurch South. Not from 2018, when we won an election, but from 2016, when we embarked on a journey to elevate the lives of that collective called Christchurch South. And it now becomes a matter of some regret. And I say this with diffident reluctance, but I must say it. And I ask the residents of Christchurch South not to have that work disrupted by what I describe slithering across the constituency of Christchurch South and slithering into the councils of this party, a two-headed serpent. Spewing the venom of political defamation. Political ambition is legitimate. Treachery and deceit are illegitimate. I say no more than that, except to encourage the residents, the citizens of Christchurch South, to let us continue the work on behalf of that constituency. The work in that constituency has been conducted with a simple motto. We seek to create a constituency that is safe, clean, and happy. It is simply expressed, but the work is profound. Safe in that a constituency must always be free from violence. And not only free from violence, but be free from violation. And we have a constituency that contains a part of the hotel belt. And we know that predators normally seek to take advantage within the hotel belt. And within the homes of persons who are of advanced years, they seek to prey on them as well. And let me pause and thank the police officers of the Oistins Police Station in small numbers, depleting numbers, Your Honor, who continue to do excellent work. Across Christchurch South, and stretching to Hastings, Christchurch West, and across the entire Barbados, the numbers are depleted, but the resolve has increased. Congratulations to those brave men and women. And if a constituency is to be clean, how can I be heard in here not to express deepest gratitude to my residential neighbor, and my geopolitical neighbor, and my friend. We don't call names in here, and I'm tempted to call his name, but the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central is a beautiful human being. He has something called a clean and green program. And not only is he cleaning and greening, but he has added to that beautification. And the beauty that he has brought to Christchurch South and to this Barbados is equal only by the beauty of his spirit. And the third portion of our motto is that the constituency should be happy. And how do you create happiness within a constituency? As you know, sir, I represent a constituency that is demographically unlike several others. We have the well-to-do, we have those who are not so well-to-do, and no politician should ever be allowed to ignore the presence of the poor. We have all in Christchurch South. And because the wealthy predominates, there's no reason for me to ignore the interests of the poor and those in the middle. And I want to say to you, Your Honor, that quite often in a constituency, when we focus on the downtrodden, we are often at risk of neglecting those who are lonely. Not only the poor are lonely, but there are several well-to-do people in this country. If they had home help, and it is highly unlikely, Your Honor, that you will ever find a person who is well-to-do asking for the presence of a companion just to talk for an hour or two. They are condemned to a television. There are well-to-do people in this country and in my constituency who are condemned to an impersonal television screen. And that is why the call-in program at midday is so popular. That is the only thing that offers them human contact. There's a lot of loneliness in this country. And I believe there's loneliness in my constituency, but sometimes pride. And the stigma associated with social welfare programs often prevents them from reaching out to the agencies of government. And then happiness among the poor is guaranteed only when they can find employment. And I will have something to say shortly to the economic planners in this government. And I will certainly have something to say through you, sir, to the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. Your mandate is pressing at a time like this, most pressing. My colleagues have addressed you on the virtues of the Appropriation Bill, and I do not propose to repeat those virtues. By now, they're fairly obvious, having listened to several of my colleagues. And I know that those virtues in this bill will be repeated by speakers to come. But, Your Honor, if the Appropriation Bill associates itself with the discipline of economics, I want to say to you, sir, that one of the most dangerous words in the lexicon of economics is the word macro. Macro. Beg your pardon, sir. Deriving itself from the Greek word, the bigger picture. And we normally contrast against macro the word micro. But let us go to the word macro. And it is always and often within the lexicon of economists to celebrate macro achievements, a healthy balance of payments, healthy foreign reserves. And we often, and with some justification, because Sometimes we want to succeed in a debate. I myself would like to encourage my colleagues to use this unique opportunity. We have been a 30-love parliament now for 5 years. And I think that we should use this unique opportunity to let ideas genuinely contend. That quite often a partisan debate is sterile. The 30 of us talking here to each other. Come, let us reason with the people of Barbados. Come, let us tell the people of Barbados how we propose to develop this country. Come, let us tell the people of Barbados how we intend to elevate the poor. And the word macro can be a very dangerous word within the lexicon of economists. As I've said, we often celebrate macro achievements and neglect to consider, beg your pardon, sir, micro realities. I was elsewhere and I heard the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northwest begin an excellent presentation. I think it was Ecclesiastes 3:1. 3:1? Yes. 1 to 7. And we all must have felt so well pleased. You permitted him Ecclesiastes 3:1. Please permit me 2 Samuel 12. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, there were 2 men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. Unquote. The parable of the ewe lamb. The rich man with all his possessions, and the poor man with just a simple little beloved ewe lamb. And rather than turning to the rich man, they took all that the poor man had. Let ideas contend. On the 31st of March this year, a number of young Barbadians will be imperiled. And let us not feel shame. Let us feel a sense of responsibility to these citizens. We talk in here a lot about the ash fall and the storm. We talk a lot about COVID. And those were periods of national crisis. And it was during that crisis that a significant group of young Barbadians found employment through this kind government. In my last speech, I congratulated the government for giving them employment, albeit unglamorous employment. That was the word I used. I congratulated the government because the government was due congratulation. Today, I am not a happy man. And it is not only because my friend died yesterday, but, Your Honor, empathy and compassion draws me to a consideration of that significant portion of humanity which will face a life of despair. April 1st will not be All Fools' Day for them. It will be a very intelligent day, but it may be and could be a very hungry day for some of them. They go to sleep like us at night and expect that their children will be fed. They wake like us on mornings, who knows what the night holds for them, and expect that their children will be fed. They hope to send them to school, Your Honor, and hope that their children will be fed at lunchtime. They bring them home on afternoons and hope that they can be happy amidst the macro achievements. Your Honor, let us bring ourselves to the micro realities that will face a significant portion of this population come March 31st. As I said, we came to them in crisis. And for many of them, their crisis will begin on April 1st. I turn to our economic planners within this government. I have nothing but the greatest admiration and respect for my colleague from Christchurch East Central. To his name, I will add, permit me to do this, Your Honor. I will add the name of Dr. Kevin Greenidge, and I do so because he is a government official. Dr. Clyde Maskell, Mr. Prasad. These are men whose names have been associated with economic planning within this government. We are all compassionate, but sometimes we need the courage. We need to introduce courage into our economic planning if we are to rescue the lives of the oppressed in this country. I go back to Samuel 2. All that they have and all that they have had is a little ewe lamb. And the rich man kept his entire flock, and a small job will be taken from these people. When we boast of a macro economy and the inevitable prosperity that will come to this macro economy, how do we relate to the micro reality of struggle by our neighbors, by our constituents, by people who vote for us and send us here? How do we relate to the micro reality of their struggle? I've heard the virtues in this budget, and now mine is a challenge to this government to find a place for them at the table of prosperity. A government spends a lot of the money that is spent on capital works programs. A government awards large contracts to private entrepreneurs in this country. You don't have to read the most abstract portions of a central bank report to know that. Let us be less concerned about glamorous lives. And let us be more concerned about the poor in this country. Let us be concerned about their condemnation to hardship. And I want to say to my colleague from Christchurch East Central, he is here, and to recommend and to ask whether a government, in awarding contracts for capital works, to to large private entrepreneurs in this country if it can be made a condition of the award of that contract that these people who lost their jobs can find employment on those capital projects. If these people who lost their ULAM, which was all that they had, can we embrace them? I represent them, sir. I am not doing this as part of any exclusively moral enterprise. Some of them I represent, and some of them you represent, Your Honor. And many of them, all of us in here represent. Shall we have taken their ULAM, and shall we now condemn them to lives of misery with the argument that they were told it was temporary? A job may be temporary, but suffering can be permanent. Let us cut the permanence of hardship. Let us, by creative means, arrive at a position in this country where we seek to protect those who find themselves unable to protect themselves. That is our duty. That is our duty. And Your Honor, amidst macro achievements, I beseech my colleagues to bring themselves to micro realities, the realities of hardship. A few days ago, I was driving down the road by the old Queen's College, Constitution Road, on my way to the office. And I was turning in to the road that leads to the Central Bank. And I stopped at the zebra crossing, and I saw a lady, a young lady, with a child on her arm. Very small child. I have children, so I'm good at guessing the ages of children. Child would have been months old, less than a year. And there was another child whose hand she was holding. I'm good at guessing the ages of children. That child could have been about 2. In the middle of Bridgetown, at a zebra crossing, but the story does not hang there. And she was walking so quickly. No doubt she had just come off of the ZR van and she was going wherever she was going. And Your Honor, one child on the arm and the other child, she was dragging that child. And I say dragging because the child's feet were not moving in a walking motion. The child was being dragged. And it hurt me. It really did hurt me. She just wanted to move quickly, and there was no one there to help her. And I felt deepest compassion. And I wanted to stop my car and to make inquiry and to offer help. But the world being what it is, sometimes you don't have the courage to involve yourself in the lives of strangers. That is the kind of society we are now. And I confess to my frailty. I had compassion, but I lacked the courage. I asked this government, no doubt filled with compassion in relation to the poor in this country, to join with that compassion, the courage to intervene into the lives of people who cannot help themselves. We know what are the consequences of a neglected portion of the population. We know what are the consequences of an alienated portion of the population. We know. I've spoken on crime in here quite a lot with condemnation. And I've often said poverty is not an excuse for criminal wrongdoing. But you and I know, we worked in those courts for many years and still do, that there's an association between criminality and poverty. You and I know that, sir. And so I know I speak to the converted. I ask the economic planners within this government to embrace those who've lost their ewe lamb, to join with compassion that we express, the courage to attempt to change their lives, and to join with that courage and that compassion, creativity of intellect. It is not beyond us, and it is not beyond our economic planners to find ways to embrace the unemployed in this country. Can we find it possible to do it? Will we stop our cars and have the courage to inquire as to the plight of people? Can we have that courage? I want to say to you, Your Honor, that I proudly represent a constituency which, during that crisis of COVID, not only did significant members in that constituency have the compassion, but they also had the courage to attempt to alleviate the lives of people from despair and hopelessness. And we don't call names in here. And I wish I could call the names of those well-to-do and not so well-to-do, and even the poor. The widow who came with her mite, M-I-T-E, to contribute to persons who were enduring the ravages of a health crisis, and all the other crises that have visited us over the last few years. I wish I could call their names: Hallam, Gordon, Tammy, Marcia, Mrs. C, that is all I will call her, Sam. These are people who had the means, but they also had the compassion, and they also had the courage. And that is why I'm so proud to be able to say, or to be able to rise to my feet when you issue your summons to me and say, "Speak forth, honorable member for Christchurch South. Speak forth and speak on for the poor, the middle, and the rich." Because the interests of the poor and the rich and the middle are inextricably tied one to the other. We live in this small country. We occupy this small space. And the rites of passage bring us into daily contact, physically and sometimes otherwise. Can we find the compassion we have? Will we find the courage? And will we engage creative intellects to save this country? I heard one of my colleagues in here today, I was listening, and he said something to the effect that the true test of a society, the true test of a civilization, relates to how it treats those of greatest disadvantage. How are we going to treat them? Mine is a voice, and I know it is not a voice that will cry in the wilderness. But I want to come back to April 1st. And I want to tell you, Your Honor, that I do not look forward to April 1st. And I want to tell you, sir, that it is within the hands of this government I normally come here and talk about the vast resources available to a government. I rejoiced in here yesterday. It was a personal moment of rejoicing when I heard that there would be no more new taxes. I enjoyed that. And I loved the macro achievement. But it has not obscured my view of the micro reality of suffering.
The honourable member has 2 more minutes.
I'm obliged to you, sir. And I will use those 2 minutes, and less than those 2 minutes, to say to you, sir, that I support the presentation. As I've said, I don't think, well, I didn't say it before, but I'll say it now. There has been outstanding macro achievement. And I sat here and I heard of all the projects, including today from some of my colleagues. There has been much reporting of the Capital Works program that will proceed at the Botanical Gardens. And I've spoken with my friend, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, who is actively engaged on behalf of this country to transform the hotel sector and to proceed with an ambitious program of building. Let us have the courage. I heard the word yesterday, transformation. In macro transformation, I beseech you, Your Honor, and this government, to transform the lives of those who endure the micro reality of suffering. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable member for St. Philip West.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this budget 2023 upward and onward, sir, with a voice heavy from the congestion of a cold. But with, sir, a smile on my face and the lightness of a song in my heart that says upward and onward. Sir, I smile, and that song is there for me, sir, because I am happy for the people of St. Philip West and the people of this country. I am happy for the families whose price protection will continue under this Barbados Labour Party government. I am happy, sir, and I smile for the elders in my community who will continue to benefit from the elder care program that will be continued. I smile, sir, for the public servants who will get a pay raise, including many from my constituency, and especially for the teachers who are a part of the school system, teachers who are doing an exceptional job, teachers who have turned on a dime when this country went into pandemic mode, teachers who continue today to go above and beyond to serve the students and the learners of this country. I am happy and I smile, sir, for all of those pensioners who will be able to get a better allowance in the tax break. I smiled, Mr. Speaker, because of all of those aspiring students who want to be filmmakers and will find a place in the burgeoning film industry in this country, as per the budget. I smile for some of the constituents who came to see me about their water authority bill and their QEH bill, who will be able to get a 25% reduction on the principal if they are able to pay in a reasonable period of time. I have so many reasons to smile, Mr. Speaker, because this budget 2023 upward and onward, it focuses on transformation. And the underlying message of transformation, sir, is that if you're transforming from something to something. You have to make a shift. You have to make a shift. And this shift that we need to make, sir, is a shift in our mindset as a people. You heard our Prime Minister in the delivery of, and Minister of Finance in her delivery yesterday, speak about where that mindset shift has to be to that of world-class excellence. We have to make a shift, sir, in the choices that we make. Being more intentional about being people-centered and aligned with our priorities for growth. We have to make that shift not only in mindset and choices, but we have to make that shift in our skills and capacity, where we are not only preparing a country with skills that are fit for purpose now, but rather that is fit for progress in the 21st century. Sir, as I speak to this mindset shift about how we need to think of things in a different way and how we must see ourselves as a country, ourselves as individuals in a world, and see our place in it in a different way. With your permission, I might use education and training, an area for which I have some responsibility as minister, as a part of the example with regards to how we need to make this shift in mindset that we need to. Sir, the World Economic Forum, which is a premier global forum where business leaders and political leaders and cultural and other types of leaders of the world come together to set global agenda for business and industry and politics and economics. That World Economic Forum, sir, tells us that 6 out of every 10, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 6 out of every 10 students who entered education system in 2016, they will be working in jobs that do not currently exist. If it is that they are going to be in jobs that do not currently exist, the way in which we need to shift our minds is to understand how then do we prepare our young learners for such an environment, for things we ourselves have not yet experienced, for jobs we cannot even begin to anticipate what they might be in every instance. How do we then prepare them in a way that is different? And if I were to ask every single colleague here, the time in which you went to school, be it nursery, primary, or secondary, or tertiary, if that time is characterized by the same opportunities, the same threats that we now see in March of 2023, if I asked you if the environment into which you had to be prepared to operate is the same as now, you would say to me, no, sir. Yet still, we have a system that continues to prepare our learners, our students, for a reality that is not theirs. There is a need, sir, as we seek to make that shift, that mindset shift, that we do so in a way that prepares our children not only for the now, because they must be able to function in the now, but also is able to prepare them for the future. And if we fail to do this, sir, we will put them on a collision course with the future, when really what we ought to be doing is putting them on a resilience course with opportunity. Sir, this 2023 budget is designed to help us to be on a resilience course, not just as a country, but in terms of preparing our many different sectors to be able to move in that direction. And sir, I spoke about the fact that when we shift our minds, it has to be about where our priorities are, where our choices are. as it relates to our priorities, certainly I said I would use the education training sector as my example. That priority must be on better quality outcomes for our students, for our learners. And that shift towards better quality outcomes must include all. Each child must matter. When I say that our priorities must be for all and not just some, sir, I mean that our priority cannot only remain as it is now, picking the cream of the crop off the top of our academic excellence list and structuring a system that has an inherent bias of pushing and rewarding primarily those perceived to be the academic elite. Yes, we must continue to do that, but it cannot be that that is our only and our prime objective. It has to be that we must also be structuring a system that will leave the 30 to 40% of those students 11 years old who have consistently over the last 10 to 15 years not made the mark to be able to transition from primary to secondary schools, 30 to 40%. It cannot be a system that underserves them. It must be a system that serves all. And in seeking, sir, to better the outcomes for all, our priority focus must also be on teaching the child and not just teaching the subject. The better outcome that we must look for our children right now is how are they mastering what they are being taught, that curriculum. And when I talk about how they're mastering, I mean not just what they know, but what is it they can do with it. It is that child that learns fractions. How did they learn to convert that fraction and use it in an applied way in home economics in saying half a cup or quarter cup? How does that ratio, when you learn to do ratios, how do you apply that 1-to-3 ratio when you're doing a chemistry experiment or a biology experiment? It is being able to take what they are learning and not only be able for them to regurgitate what they know, but for them to be able to demonstrate what they can do in a way that sees competency-based learning raising its head in a more significant way in this country. And when I say better outcomes for all of our children, I mean, Mr. Speaker, learners who are gifted academically, as well as learners who are gifted in different talents. We have traditionally focused on the academic excellence. And there are many different ways in which excellence and learning and intelligences can be demonstrated. Sir, with your permission, I give the example. I will not call his name because I did not ask your permission so to do. At the launch of the Construction Gateway program at Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute, back in April, May of 2022, there was a young man. He stood up and he spoke. And he said, you know, I wasn't so good in school. And the teachers didn't really pay me much mind. After a while, I wasn't interested. Bottom line, he was saying he disengaged. Yet still he was going to Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute. And he was learning a trade. And he was so proud of himself. He said, I was always good with my hands, you know. I could pick down anything, I could put back up anything. I could just see it. And I would be able to pick it down and put it back together. And it was when he found his place in that program that he started to shine. And he spoke about his journey in education. And it was a journey where he was not criticizing what he had experienced. He was just aspiring to different for himself. And so the approach that we have to take now is about where are the aspirations of our people? Where are the intelligences leading them? What is it that they want to do? What is it that will lead them to opportunity that exists? And his story, Mr. Speaker, is one that will continue to inspire me as we go through this process with Barbados, with our public, as we engage and discuss with real consultation on what education reform must look like in this country. All, Mr. Speaker, means that they are learners with disabilities who must not just have access to education in the physical and traditional ways, but they must have proper accommodation within our systems. All, Mr. Speaker, also means those students with special needs who are at different stages along the spectrum. Much of the research that we are seeing, sir, is telling us that when we take students with special needs and we separate them out from the crop, the cream of the crop, to which I referred earlier, that it is not always in their best interest, and that we need to find a way to integrate them within the existing regular school system, perhaps with special classes, with special units, but not ostracizing and separating in a way that we have traditionally done. Those are part of the conversations we need to continue to have as a country. And Mr. Speaker, our priority interests, when we're talking about priorities, shifting priorities, our priority interest must be that of developing our educators. Because if we are to tell ourselves the truth, if you do not have teachers that are properly trained and developed to be able to continue to facilitate learning in a changing environment, the children will not learn without quality instruction. And therefore, we need to continue to focus on our educators because they deserve our training, they deserve our resources, they deserve our investment in them. And it is not just about quality teaching and instruction and facilitation, sir. It is also about giving them the right support for their mental health, because they, like the rest of the country, are impacted by all that is going on, including all that is going on in the school, wholesome and otherwise. We must also give them support for ongoing professional. Many of the teachers in our systems trained and then they stop. Some of them have taken responsibility for their own learning and gone on to professional development, but that now has to be a systematic part of that profession, ongoing professional development. And we must give them the kind of support through communities of practice, others like them, whether they're local, regional, or international. Sir, in the budget yesterday, you heard our Minister of Finance and our Prime Minister speak to the fact that 22 new master teachers will be introduced into the system during this period. I welcome that, sir. And I welcome that because for far too long, we have had teachers who are excellent teachers, world-class teachers. However, when it came to their promotion and moving up in the system, the only option for them was to become principals or deputy principals. And not all of them are necessarily suited. Not all of them have that interest. But then we lose the strength and the richness of their teaching because we had to move them into leadership and administration at a senior level. The master teacher path now gives them another pathway to get promoted, to be able to continue to earn higher, and for upward mobility generally, without necessarily having to go the path of that of principal. Sir, I said that some of the shifts that have to be made is in priorities, and some that have to be made in choices. Now, as we move towards the professional development of our teachers and others, we need to be able to give them choices. Erdeston Teachers Training College and University of the West Indies has, for the most part, locally been the choices that they have had for their own training and professional development. We have now, in collaboration with the Inter-American Development Bank and the National Transformation Initiative, NTI, been able to put an educators hub in place where they have curated a number of courses that are relevant to teaching and instruction and education administration and other aspects related to the work that has to be done in that sector. They have curated those courses, and those courses are free of charge to teachers, leaders, and educators. We have made that possible for them through the National Transformation Initiative and with the support of the Inter-American Development Bank. And teachers have started to access that. I was trying to get the statistics for it just before, earlier today, but I have not been able to get those statistics. But increasingly, you are getting teachers who are now logging into that hub for their continuing professional development. You have also partnerships that Urdeston Teachers College have determined that Urdeston alone cannot have its own capacity to do this. It must have partnerships regionally, internationally, to be able to bring the courses to and the training to the teachers and the leaders, school leaders, that's required. And so they are now exploring partnership with some universities regionally and internationally that will be able to bring that additional and give the choice of additional training for our teachers and leaders. The CARICOM regional portal is being developed. Work with our unions to establish a teaching commission. As you know, some legislation was passed years ago which was not enacted on that, and we have some, after discussions a couple of weeks ago, we are going to start moving in the direction of seeing how best we might be able to operationalize this. And of course, there are all kinds of other opportunities that we will be seeking to curate to make sure that we give priority to the interests of our teachers and our educators, our leaders in general. And it's not just about the teachers and the leaders. The Ministry of Education itself, education officers, need to have their training upgraded so that they themselves have the capacity to do the work that they're required to do for oversight and administration. That is where we need to ensure that we have shifted some of our priorities. The choices, sir, that we have to make, again, I said I will use education as the example for the shift that has to be made. It is recognizing, as I said, not only that children learn differently and are gifted in different ways, but we now have to create choices of different pathways that those students can take throughout their learning journey from nursery all the way to tertiary. More will come on this as we start to talk about education reform and what must be put out there. The bottom line is that those pathways must align with their interests, with their talents, with the future of work, with our national, regional development priorities, and of course, with global opportunities. Mr. Speaker, another shift that has to be made. We've talked about our shifting priorities and our shifting choices, and the shifting skills too must be part of the shift that we make towards transformation, particularly as it relates to the education sector, but not exclusively. It is certainly for us to move towards skills that are 21st century, that are transferable. When you are entering a world where the future of work is unpredictable, or let's say imprecise in all of the opportunities that will present themselves. In fact, you need to have a student that is prepared with the life skills, the critical thinking, the problem-solving ability, and all of those other life skills that will enable them to be able to withstand what's coming at them, to adapt to the changes that will come, to be able to bounce back when they have setbacks, and to be able to aspire with confidence to opportunities that are new and innovative. And that means that the way in which we include social and emotional learning targets in our curriculum is significant. Because it's not just now about being able to memorize and regurgitate by rote, because that serves when you already know what you're dealing with. But when you are entering an uncertain environment, memorization will get you nowhere. You have to have the capacity to think in a different way, to be creative, and to be able to apply what you know in a way that is transferable from one opportunity to the other. So, sir, that We have had conversations about what that needs to look like, and we will continue to have conversations with the public as to what that kind of preparedness with the 21st century skills must look like. In addition, sir, you know, some of the students have come together from different schools and started to have their own conferences so that they themselves can make input into what reform might look like. And I will just pull one example. One of the recommendations that came from one of those student conferences was that they were leaving school with no idea about how to manage money, how to pay taxes, how to save, how to invest, and they wanted financial literacy to be an integral part of the curriculum. We have said that we will consider that through the committee that will deal with curriculum during the curriculum reform experience and be able to come up with a program that is suitable at different levels with different standards as you go through the system, so that by the time the student reaches a certain age and a certain stage in their journey, they will have picked up the skills that are necessary at those very different levels. Sir, I know that my time is short. In this budget, sir, our Minister of Finance and our Prime Minister made the point that training will be a priority for this country. And I have shared some of the efforts we have made with training. I'll probably share a few more. And they have said that infrastructure will also be critical. I'm going to start, sir, with infrastructure. Now, as you know, sir, and I believe many of my colleagues in Barbados knows, infrastructure in the school system, across the school system, from nursery to primary to secondary, we did not inherit a perfect infrastructure across the schools when we came in 2018. There were many years of neglect before this Barbados Labour Party government took over. And sir, I would not say that idly. Let's take 2015, 2016. That year, for maintenance of property across 85 of our public secondary schools, that was under a different administration. Just about $2.5 million was spent on maintenance. Just 5 years later, under this Barbados Labour Party's government, 2021, 2022, it was $8.6 million that was spent on the maintenance of schools. That is practically 4 times, almost 4 times, the amount on maintenance of schools. We have been told that we're not putting money into infrastructure. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I wish we could do more. But when we look at the infrastructure, the spending that we have also had in the summer program now is where you do major works to schools. Let's take 2015, 2016 again. But 1.8+ million was spent on the summer program. Let's look just 5 years later under this Barbados Labour Party, 2020, 2021, 3.7+ million was spent on major works within the school system. We recognize, sir, that we have a far way to go. Neglect has left us in a very vulnerable position in many of the schools. We have mold problems in old buildings. We have ceilings that are leaking. We have steel that is rusted in places, and therefore the structural integrity of the place is at risk. We have plumbing that is out of date. We have electrical systems that when we tried to connect for distance learning or for online learning, we could not, simply because the electrical systems were not up to standard. Sir, the magnitude of the infrastructural concerns that we have been large. But I commit to you, and I shared with you some of the figures, that we will continue this year to invest heavily in both maintenance, which is the smaller repairs, ongoing repairs, as well as the major repairs. We will continue to invest significantly in the millions through this budget and others in trying to make that happen. It is our intention to make every school environment an environment where people want to go, but it will not happen all at once. And we are asking our education partners within our school campuses, our teachers, our auxiliary staff, our principals, all who are a part of that environment, to work with us. To work with us. Because this is a ministry of education that is willing to work with our partners to do better for our children, by our children, for our partners, and by our partners. I shared with you, sir, that another one of the commitments from this budget was that of additional training. I already shared with you some of the work that we're doing with regards to training of our very key and important educators at the different levels. Sir, you heard the Prime Minister yesterday speak to you about the level of training that is going on for civil servants in how we manage, how we govern, how we look at performance, how we measure performance, how we manage, how we supervise. You would have heard, sir, that our Ministry of Education has not just allowed training to be at that level of permanent secretaries and others. We have been working with the Ministry of Health, with the Coalition for Obesity in Children, for the prevention of obesity in children, with the Heart and Stroke Foundation and others to work with canteen concessionaires and with vendors on the implementation of our new schools nutrition policy. We have taken training, sir, as far as our janitors and maids, and we intend to expand that to others. Why? Because when you have buildings that are old, that have mold, and we have now cleaned them in some locations, including some of the work has already been done at the Ministry of Education and other locations, then we need to be able to maintain the environment. And it is the janitors and the cleaners who have to do that. So training has to go at all different levels. We are intending that as we move forward with the monitors, the school monitors, just as training has been provided for those from the Barbados Water Authority and for those from National Housing Corporation, additional training will be provided to those monitors, school monitors, who've been in the schools working with our students. And from the reports from our principals, most have been doing an exceptional job in helping them to manage the educational environment so that teachers can be free to teach while others are there to offer the support on a day-to-day basis. And so the training, I thought to share this with you, Mr. Speaker, and with the rest of my colleagues in Barbados, to let you know that training is not just for the supervisors and the civil servants at the higher levels. We, as a Ministry of Education, we are taking training throughout, and we are not only training those partners outside of the ministry, we are ensuring that those inside the ministry are also able to benefit from the development of their capacity. Sir, there is much that needs to be shifted, including curriculum. I see you blinking at me, sir, so I know that my time is drawing near. Your blinks are very telling, sir. Our, excuse me, our work as it relates to shifting minds and mindsets and even shifting how our education system works for everyone will include curriculum. And sir, while I can go on and on, I will let this be my last, with your permission, sir. We need to have a curriculum that produces more well-rounded students. Not only those who are literate and numerate, know how to count, know how to write and to read, but those who are digitally literate, who know how to use the various types of technologies in a responsible way and with adequate proficiency to allow them not only to know but to do. We need, sir, to make sure that the curriculum we are putting in place is relevant and that it is meaningful. And what do I mean by that? Some of the students from the conference I mentioned earlier, the student conference, they said that a lot of what they learn is not really relevant. And so they have started to help us to rethink some of the areas where we may be able to make the curriculum more relevant. We talked about authentic learning. Authentic learning is where you actually go and do the thing in a real world environment to be able to demonstrate that you have the capacity to be able to use the knowledge that you have. It is in that applied side. And it is more of that kind of knowledge, that kind of learning, and that way of us being able to prepare students that have to be a part of that relevant and meaningful curriculum. I spoke about our curriculum being competency-based. And sir, there is a need for us to have standards that when you enter school, be it at the nursery level, whether you're in infants B class, 1 class, 2 class, 3, these are the standards you must meet in order to move on to the next level. We currently do not have enough of those very clearly articulated standards, and we're definitely not implementing such standards in a way that makes sense, so that it is not just about can you pass the exam, but it is have you reached these standards that will truly put you in that place of global excellence. Sir, you heard about the budget strength for
Honourable member,
strings.
you know I was blinking before.
And you're blinking now, sir.
So you understand that very well.
Sir, as we look at this, at the string, sir, this is the very last area you heard in the budget yesterday. I'm referring specifically to the strings program in primary schools, where our Minister of Finance spoke about $600,000 being placed in the budget for the 68 primary schools to be able to benefit from the strings program. Strings being your guitar and your violin and your cello and those types of instruments that have strings. And I wanted to share, sir, that that also makes me smile, because what research has shown us is that usually these programs are not just about playing an instrument. It tends to teach them the discipline of practice on practice on practice so that they can work to mastery. It teaches them about earning their own journey, owning their journey in learning, because they go home and they do home practice on their own. It teaches them, sir, about respect for each other as they have to play in harmony. They must be able to respect the boundaries and the parameters within which that they must operate. Sir, it has also been shown that those students with special needs have shown, and those with behavioral challenges have shown improved motivation and improved engagement through programs like these. So I wanted to share that, sir, because as I said, I started with a smile, even though with a heavy voice from this call. But it is because what we are putting in place from a transformational perspective has a benefit that goes beyond the classroom. And it is about teaching them the skills for life that they need. It is, sir, that I close on this note. And I say to you, sir, upward and onward we shall go. Thank you. God bless you.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House for 10 minutes until 6 p.m.
Question that this Honourable Chairman be suspended until 6 p.m. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until 6 p.m.